Today we will see about venous sinuses Today we'll see about venous sinuses of Duramater. They are the empty, they are the spaces, they are the spaces between the two layers of Duramater. Duramater has the two layers. Outer layer is endosteal layer. Inner layer is Duramater has got the two layers. Outer layer is the endosteal layer, inner layer is the meningeal layer. Between these two layers there is a space. This space is called as venous sinuses. Sinuses means a space, a blind space, called as venous sinuses of the Duramater. What are the features? The features of the venous Duramater. The features of the venous, their walls are formed by the endothelium. Their walls are formed by endothelium. Their walls are formed by endothelium. They don't have muscular coat. They don't have muscular coat. They don't have muscular coat. They don't have walls. They don't have walls. They don't have walls. Their quality of the blood is regulated by the emissary vein. Their quality usually regulated by the emissary veins. Once again I repeat, there is the space between the two layers of the Duramater, that is the endosteal layer as well as the meningeal layer. Between these two layers there are the sinuses. There are the spaces called as venous sinuses. It has the endothelium. No muscular coat. They don't have walls. But usually the venous blood is regulated by the emissary vein. Emissary veins, as I already told you, they connect the external cranial veins with the internal cranial veins. These venous sinuses issue the blood. These venous sinuses issue the blood from the brain, from the meninges, from the bones of the skull, and CSU. These venous sinuses issue the blood from the brain, issue the venous blood from the meninges, issue the venous blood from the bones of the skull and the CSF. These issue. Now there are the two types of the venous sinuses. Some are paired, which are situated laterally, are paired, which are situated medially, are unpaired. See, you can see the list here. I will read the list of these venous sinuses. Venous sinuses of the Duramater, they are paired. Paired are on either side. They are paired means either side. They are lateral in position. They are the cavernous sinus, already we have seen. Superior petrosal sinus, inferior petrosal sinus, transverse sinus, sigmoid sinus, Sphenoparietal sinus, petrosquamous sinus, middle meningeal veins. These 8, cavernous sinus, superior petrosal sinus, inferior petrosal sinus, transverse sinus, sigmoid sinus, spheno-occipital sinus, petrosquamous sinus, middle meningeal vein. They are 8. 8 are the paired situated laterally, lateral in position. Whereas the middle position, the sinus is situated middle are unpaired. They are single. They are single or superior sagittal sinus, inferior sagittal sinus, straight sinus, occipital sinus, anterior intercavernous, posterior intercavernous, basilar plexus of superior sagittal sinus, inferior sagittal sinus, straight sinus, occipital sinus, anterior intercavernous sinus, posterior intercavernous sinus, basilar plexus of the veins. These are the paired and unpaired venous sinuses we are going to study. Among this, the important are the cavernous sinus, which is important to the ophthalmic surgeon, because any thrombosis in this will goes to the scalp. And one more is the superior petrosal sinus. Any thrombosis from the head, neck and nose will go to the brain. It is very much important to the neurophysician or neurosurgeon. One more is important is the sigmoid sinus. The sigmoid sinus is very much important to the ENT surgeon because it drains from the mastoid veins of the parietal region. Hence, it is very much important to the ENT surgeon. These are the 3 important clinically: cavernous sinus, superior petrosal sinus, and sigmoid sinus. We will see one by one. Now we'll see here the superior sagittal sinus. Superior sagittal sinus, which is unpaired. It starts from the cristae galli. It starts from cristae galli here. And in the cristae galli, in the beginning, it is drained by the frontal sinuses. Frontal sinuses and the nasal sinus, and the nasal also. If the foramina, there is a foramina cecum. If the foramina cecum is patent, it runs from the nasal also and frontal sinus. It goes large. It becomes larger posteriorly, and it continues as the straight sinus. Right, that is the right transverse sinus. It continues as a right transverse sinus as the internal occipital protuberance. Yes, superior sagittal sinus, which ends in the internal occipital protuberance. It continues as the right transverse sinus. Right transverse sinus, it continues. Right transverse sinus is larger than the left transverse sinus. It ends here. This superior sagittal sinus, it will join here. It will join with the joined by the inferior sagittal sinus and the left transverse sinus here. There is a confluence, means dilatation of the sinuses. There is a confluence of the sinuses, means dilatation of the sinuses, which drain into the internal occipital protuberance. The tributaries, you can see here. You can see the tributaries of the superior sagittal sinus, emissary vein. See here. You can see the inside the tributaries of the superior sagittal sinus. That is the emissary vein and the diploic veins. Diploic vein and meningeal veins and arachnoid granules. You can see arachnoid villi. Arachnoid villi, these are the main tributaries. Emissary vein, which connect the internal cranial venous with the extracranial and intracranial veins. Diploic veins. Diploic veins are nothing but they are the veins present in the diploid of the sponge structure present in the bones of the skull. Present in the bones of the skull, the diploid, the sponge structure, start from the diploic veins. These diploic veins will connect the diploid, the bones of the skull to the sinuses, diploic veins. Diploic veins also carry the infections. They are present in the bones of the skull, the spongy structure of the outer and inner table of the skull. These dip-like veins present in the anteriorly, middle and posteriorly. They are the frontal, parietal and occipital dip-like veins. These also connect. They also drain into the superior sagittal vein and superior cerebral vein. Superior cerebral vein also drain here. Superior cerebral vein, arachnoid villi will open here. It is regarding the superior sagittal sinus. Here there is a arachnoid emissary vein, dip-like vein, superior cerebral vein. They all will drain into. Moreover, there is a venous lacunae, three on each side. Venous lacunae, three pair on either side. They will open here, and there is venous lacunae. Lacunae means opening. These will open here. Venous lacunae, three on each side. These will open, drain into the superior sagittal sinus. If there is an infection in the scalp, if there is an infection in the nasal cavity, in the frontal part, this will cause the superior sagittal sinus thrombosis. It will cause thrombosis of the superior sagittal sinus, and moreover there is a superior sagittal sinus which crosses from anterior to posteriorly. There lies the paracentral lobules of the cerebrum, and it may cause the hemiparesis of the lower, because the paracentral lobule will represent lower limb as well as the perineum. If there is a thrombosis, it may cause the paraplegia of the lower limb as well as the perineum. It is regarding the superior sagittal sinus thrombosis. Well, moreover, there is thrombosis. Thrombosis may cause, there may be due to the thrombosis, there may be not be the proper flow of there may be proper absorption of the CSF. It may also cause, it may create intracranial tension also. Due to the thrombosis, the CSF flow may be obstructed. There may be obstruction in the CSF flow. That may also cause intracranial tension. It may cause intracranial tension. Well, now we'll go to the inferior sagittal sinus. Inferior sagittal. It is a free sharp inferior sagittal sinus is here. It will join the left transverse vein. Left transverse vein here. Left transverse vein. There is a in the left transverse vein, there is a one mechanism called as ball wall mechanism here. In the confluence, below the confluence, that is the ball wall mechanism present here. There is a ball wall mechanism formed by the plexus of the vein. Plexus of the vein, which regulates the flow of the plexus of the sinuses. Plexus of the sinusoids rather, which regulates the flow of the CSF, cerebrospinal fluid here. Ball wall mechanism present in the left sinus. Then here there is a superior petrosal sinus present in the lesser wing of the sphenoid, which drain into the cavernous sinus. Then inferior petrosal sinus is here. Inferior petrosal sinus that is present, that connects. Inferior petrosal sinus is there, that also drain into cavernous sinus. Then there is a straight sinus. There is one more sinus is there, that is a straight internal jugular vein, superior petrosal sinus, internal jugular sinus. You can see here there is a sigmoid sinus. Moreover, you can see here the pterygoid venous plexus which drain into the cavernous sinus here. Inferior petrosal sinus. We have also seen this drain from the meninges. That is the spinopalatal sinus. There is a facial. There you can also see the basilar venous plexus. Basilar venous plexus drain into the vertebral venous plexus. This basilar venous plexus connects the two inferior petrosal sinus here. two inferior petrosal sinus. Now the sigmoid sinus, see here, the sigmoid sinus is here. Sigmoid sinus is a J-shaped. J-shaped present here. They drain into the inferior bulb of the jugular foramina. Jugular foramina anteriorly there is a mustard process and mustard air cells. Anteriorly there is a mustard process in internal jugular vein. There is a anteriorly there is a mustard antrum and mustard air cells are here. If they drain, this sigmoid sinus drain from the mustard air cells and internal auditory vein also drains here. Hence, there is any infections. There is infections of the sigmoid sinus is secondary to the otitis media. Secondary to the otitis media, the sigmoid sinus, there is a thrombosis will occur, and there may be also there is a thrombosis will occur here, sigmoid sinus, and there may be also obstruction in the CSF. There is called hydrocephalus, that the sigmoid sinus will lead to hydrocephalus also. This also very much important, sigmoid sinus, very much important clinically. This internal drain into the internal jugular vein, bulb of internal jugular vein, present on the jugular foramina, present in the jugular foramina. Anteriorly there is a mustard process, mustard air cells are there, it is and thrombosis of the internal jugular vein. There is a sigmoid sinus is secondary to the otitis media. Secondary to the otitis media, this may obstruction to the, this may cause tenderness of this area may cause. And one thing has to be remembered, as it lies superficially, I mean during the mastoid, after ENT surgeon must remember, should not expose the sigmoid sinus. ENT surgeon must remember he must avoid the exposing the sigmoid sinus. It must be born in the mind of the ENT surgeon. And superior petrosal sinus, it drains the veins from the superior petrosal sinus, it drains from the brain, cerebellum, medulla, brain stem, it drains from this brain also. That is the medulla, pons, cerebellum, it drains superior that is this inferior petrosal sinus is here. This inferior petrosal sinus drain from the cerebellum, from the medulla. From the medulla it also drains. Now we'll go to the meningeals. See here, now we'll go to the meningeal veins. Meningeal veins are here. See, there is a meningeal veins. These meningeal veins are two, anteriorly and posteriorly. Anteriorly they drain from the foramina ovale and posteriorly. As they are superficial and they get more fracture during any fracture to the skull bones, they are more prone to get the torn. They are more prone to get the tear because they are superficially and attached to the bone. Any fracture of the skull, meningeal veins are quite common to get injured. It is regarding the meningeal veins. Meningeal veins. Now we'll come to there are the cerebral vein and these cavernous sinus, transverse sinus, sigmoid sinus, basilar venous plexus, which connect the two inferior petrosal sinuses connected by the basilar venous plexus, feed drain into vertebral plexus. And the occipital sinus present in the two lobes, that is the two lobes of the falx cerebri, present in the falx cerebri. These are the things, and intercavernous sinuses. On these two intercavernous sinuses are there. You know the cavernous sinus are present on either side. It is the cavernous sinus. It is the cavernous sinus is here. You can see the cavernous sinus. These cavernous sinuses, these cavernous on either side. On either side of the cavernous sinus, there is a intercavernous sinus. Intercavernous sinus. It is a cavernous sinus. There is on either side the intercavernous sinus. One is anteriorly, one is posterior to the infundibulum. They connect each other and they lie behind the hypophysis cerebri or pituitary gland. Intercavernous sinuses are there. Intercavernous sinuses are there. Regarding the sinuses, once again I repeat here, Once again I repeat, they drain from the brain, from the meninges, from the bones of the skull, from the CSF. You can see here, once again, they are the cavernous sinus important for the ophthalmic surgeon, and there is a straight sinus, that is the superior sagittal sinus is important to the neurosurgeon. Sigmoid sinus is important for the ENT surgeon, and these are the venous sinuses. These are the venous sinuses. Among them, the straight sinus. Straight sinus will form a plexus of the sinusoids, which causes the ball valve mechanism, which regulates the flow of the CSF. These are the sinuses, and thrombosis of the sinus, sigmoid sinuses is important. Thrombosis of the cavernous sinus we have seen, and thrombosis of the superior sagittal sinus is may drain. Any infection from the scalp, there the nose, they may get to the superior sagittal sinus. The superior sagittal sinus thrombosis will may cause, it may cause, because there is the area of the paracentral lobule, it may cause hemiparesis, hemiplegia of the lower limb, because that is the presence of the paracentral lobule. Hemiplegia of the lower limb and the hemiplegia of the perineum may cause, there is a palsy of the perineum may cause, it is regarding the, these are very much important clinically. Once again I repeat, cavernous sinus, sigmoid sinus, superior sagittal sinus are very much important. These are very much important surgically and clinically. Please take care, be in the home, be safe. Any doubts are there, you are most welcome. Take care.